our first case is a global food processing brand, and the challenge there was the indirect spend optimization. Indirect spend optimization is one of the most challenging parts. You all know the different kind of challenges there, but this company is one of the biggest food processing companies in the world. I think top 3 in Europe had a specific challenges there. So if I get into each of those ones, so 1.6 billion revenue, multiple locations, 20 plus locations, of course, different ERPs, and over 9,000 suppliers. When we start talking to them, they had visibility to 7% of these suppliers and 12% of spend, which was extremely surprising. They had multiple different and incomplete taxonomies, so spend hierarchy across their business, which we're going to show you a little bit more. And of course, no surprises, lack of resources. And the last one, which is even making it worse, is that they had a completely decentralized procurement organization. So they were not connected to each other, a smaller team, but also decentralized. So that makes things obviously worse. What we've done for them, and we're going to show you, I think, a highlight of what we've done, obviously with anonymized and randomized data there, is we help them to refine and optimize their ideal taxonomy. We're working with a business to utilize our app to come together actually and be able to refine their taxonomy to what it needs to be. I think it's kind of a continuation of the conversation we had yesterday on the panel. We've helped them in a matter of 3 weeks to basically categorize 94% of their suppliers and 99% of their spend. And in the next 3 weeks, they have basically reviewed and approved those. So these are what has already reviewed and accepted by the business. On the other side, we don't have a crystal ball. So AI cannot do everything. And we do believe that the SMEs need to be in the loop. So all what we do and what you see in the next few slides is that how can we simplify, do the complex work in the background, simplify the results for our end users so they can focus on what exactly is needed to be done. So that's what we're trying to do, and it has been very effective on these 2 cases. We've identified about 12% opportunities across their supplier base. Obviously, they were managing 300 to 400 suppliers, and now they could be looking into close to 9,000 suppliers. And obviously, when you move from 400 suppliers to 8,000 suppliers or any other proportion like this, and you do have a limited resources, you want to make sure that you allocate resources in the right place. So we're helping them to segment their supplier base, utilizing the data, so they can basically focus on what matters and be able to rationalize their supplier base. So I'm going to go into each of these levels, maybe a little bit faster, to show you the details on how we have been basically handling each of these areas. So when we go to any client or where you have initial conversations with any business, the first and most boring question we're asking them is, do you have a spend taxonomy? And in what maturity is this spend taxonomy? For procurement, as you know better than I do, the spend taxonomy or hierarchy is the lens that procurement professionals look through the world with. So if you have a very dirty lens or you have an adjusted lens, how can you see what's relevant for you and how can you take action on those? So when we ask this question, no surprise, we usually get 20 different Excel files across different business that says, oh yeah, this is our corporate taxonomy, this is a finance taxonomy, this is a business unit 1 taxonomy, this is taxonomy we're trying to be utilizing here, but some use it and some not. And at the end of the day, with too many structures, none of them were going to be utilized, right? What we have helped them actually with the app, and as I mentioned yesterday, we are enabler for the procurement organizations to do things faster and more effective. It's basically ability for them. We have built a taxonomy builder, ability for procurement organizations to be able to basically bring their spend hierarchy, sharing it with their other colleagues across the business, and being able to provide feedback, get feedback, reflect that feedback, and in real time have that feedback reflected on their transactions Obviously, this goes through different layers of approvals through the organization, so making sure everything is compliant and can be reviewed. But this is something I have been missing for for the last 10 years across anywhere that I have worked. And actually, in this use case, this company actually went in and I think they changed their taxonomy 3 times or modified their taxonomy 3 times. This is what you can see. Basically, a user or SME can be utilizing to go into the taxonomy, make changes, rename, add different levels, as well as merge or move the categories. And these are all connected, interconnected together with their transactional data. So you just see one of these examples, basically. And this output of this can be basically what they have been utilizing it to be fitting it into their ERP system. So they're utilizing SAP ERP system. So all of these changes with the material code or category code is actually being able to be reflected on their ERP system, utilizing a one center-led process and a capability to manage all of their transactions. A good thing is to be bringing, I think in this case, to bringing really finance and treasury together with the procurement team on the indirect side of the house. The next one, the big challenge here on an indirect, as always, is that you never have enough data. So one of the biggest challenges, and here is the same, it's that 30% of the spend was on the PO. Obviously, problems with the supplier master data, limited information or incorrect sometimes information on the invoices. And so we had the very basic information that we could have utilized from supplier, just looking into a location, the invoice number, the GL codes, and the business units there. What we did for them is to basically augmenting their transactional data, utilizing external data points. So one of the advantages that we are taking into our design is that for every client, we're designing their specific tailor algorithms, who's being able to help and understand their own taxonomy and able to reflect those ones. So we are understanding for every client, what are those key data elements that the business is utilizing today, what those matters and what are we missing, and how we can be capturing the missing part and bringing back into the platform for them. So for this specific case, we've been looking into supplier A outside what supplier A does actually, what are those products and services that it's providing, how those are categorized actually outside of this company, and some other areas in terms of how's the growth rate of these supplier, and obviously bringing all those refined taxonomy into the mix as well. So with this plan, we'll be able to be building a model for algorithm for them and really run this algorithm in a matter of days to start categorization with their ideal taxonomy. So, and this is how it looks like. So the user is basically seeing all the suggestions by the machine and is able to basically review by exceptions at a category or subcategory level, provide input and feedback. And based on the feedback that is being provided, the algorithm will be basically learning and replicating those through the rest of the data. Obviously, this goes through, again, across this organization, especially the challenge was they have been extremely decentralized. So we could basically bring different type of users across the business who know the business really well. And they could be spending, I think on average, probably they spend about half an hour to an hour on the 3 weeks to basically go through and validate all these data. So that was a power to be utilizing more users that are maybe not as specifically also a procurement, but working with those suppliers to get this data. Procurement team is always having a challenge that everything is expected from them. From my last life, I used to be putting category analysts and category managers in one room and pushing them through an hour or 2 hours to go and helping us to categorize stuff manually. And this group of people would do anything not to be in that room or in that meeting with me, because that was literally the last thing they wanted to do. So we've been trying to be solving this, turn this around. And so they or their peers only need to review only if it's needed. because the value is not here. The value is actually what happens after. So now you have the final taxonomy in place. We have a categorization and review. We've done lots of data cleansing. We can show you more, I think, in the next case already. And now it's a part that the procurement people love, right? Looking into the inside, understanding how this spend portfolio is actually distributed across this taxonomy. What are those categories or subcategories that are not managed today or have never been managed? What are those subcategories that don't make sense to be a standalone? So we need to be consolidating them. They can all see this in a view, in a very simple but effective view, and basically react on it. They can go back into the taxonomy builder. They can suggest a different consolidation. And most importantly, look into that supplier segmentation. So we can go into the supplier segmentation, we are helping them with basically categorizing the suppliers into 3 different buckets: strategic, critical, and transactionals. And they can review it and they can decide if they want to have a different preferences across each of these suppliers. Other modules, what they get most out of it is really ability to look into, and this is one of the many examples, of course, is understanding what is the spend concentration across each of these categories and subcategories. And you can see in this example, looking into one of these subcategories in professional services and understanding we have a low level of concentration. So they can see easily who are the suppliers that are contributing across all of the business, and immediately are able to create an opportunity to be looking into this. So this is an example where they basically look into consolidating some of the HR consultancy services that has been provided to them across the business into one of the biggest suppliers. Can be always as simple as this. Of course, you see the highlights, but trying to compare this with all the interactions that we used to do with Excel and the SharePoint, just as it mentioned, and bring all this together, it's really generating that value for the organization. Let's see if I have something else to show here. And of course, there's opportunities. Opportunity lifecycle is part that always have been isolated from the work that the procurement team is doing. And for this group, it was extremely valuable that procurement team and finance and treasury group have one view of what are the benefits that the procurement team is basically generating. So bringing them together, creating the workflows that the finance group is aware and aligned with the saving, that is the biggest value for that group in terms of the time, but also alignments with the group. The remaining is just a typical reporting. We're not trying to be a reporting tool, but obviously for a bigger organization to communicate the work that has been done, this was a feature that has been developed as has been requested by this client.